right, Coffee with Gaz here with Erik Calvino.
Thank you, man.
Erik, appreciate you coming on, man.
I appreciate it. I love this. This is great.
this
Coffee
is-
with guys with no coffee.
No coffee. We're no coffee, but with cigars.
We do have cigars, thankfully.
That's what we're doing. And I want to be honest
brought
with you. Thanks for bringing the cigars, but you had me with the Cigar Snob.
Yeah, you like that.
I like it. I love it. I think it's brilliant. Little bit about
Not a lot of people say my name and then brilliant, so
Uh,
I appreciate that.
I am
get that a
vouching.
lot.
You're just elevating your game right now. You have my permission to tell anybody I said that. But I'm curious, just and I have being a newbie per se, an opportunistic cigar smoker. Tell me about.
We don't hate on that.
No, we don't hate. I mean, you're right. Open for everybody. But
Yeah.
the name Cigar Snob. How'd you come up with that?
It was actually my best friend who owned a cigar company at the time, and so while traveling the country and doing cigar events after cigar events, he thought these guys call themselves Cigar Snobs. So when I told him, look, I'm launching a magazine, and he's like, dude, I have the perfect name for you. It's Cigar Snob. And I was like, wait, yeah, you're right. That is the perfect name. I mean, I loved it as much as you loved it when you first saw it. Everyone, I mean, it's a name that immediately when people see it, they get it. And if they don't get it, then they're probably not my customer. You're probably not going to get the magazine. If you don't get the name that we're snobby about cigars, but then everything else, we're not snobby.
That's why I think it's brilliant because you're kind of attacking that wall of this. There's a pretentious type of
100%.
cigar smoker, and then you have those who maybe want to get into it, but that might be a little bit timid, right? It's intimidating. Look,
yeah.
I mean, I told you, I think I'm a pretty confident person, but walking into a cigar shop, it's completely overwhelming.
Yep.
So asking those questions, am I getting the right deal? So I just thought it was brilliant that just with the name alone,
it's a little
you
bit
get
like sorry to interrupt. When you walk into a guitar shop, like a guitar center or whatever, and you walk in and then you're trying to talk to the salesman and he's just riffing on the guitar, and you're like, yeah, no,
Not that
I'm gonna go home now.
Not that one.
Yeah, this is not happening.
Go to the drum set.
Yep.
Drums are a little bit easier.
So, but yeah, cigars do that, right? When you walk into the cigar store and you see those rows and rows and rows and rows, and you're like, I have no idea what any of that is. And that is incredibly intimidating, and that's the idea of the magazine, right? Is to give you a little bit of ammo so that when you walk in, you understand a little bit and you know what to ask for at least. That's one, right? The magazine is supposed to help you with that. We do a section called Brand Breakdown where we kind of talk about the different metrics of a cigar. That way, it gives you an idea, is this a strong cigar, is this a mild cigar, right? What are the flavors? But then the other part that I would say is, if you walk into a cigar store, don't be afraid to talk to the guy behind the counter. Even if you walk in and you see those, and there's 3 or 4 guys in there, and they all look like they know what they're doing, I can tell you 90-something% of cigar smokers have no idea what they're talking about.
Okay, that makes me feel more confident already.
Yeah, you don't know, and the reason I say that, and I'm probably insulting a few people right now, and that's okay, is that
you're not living if you're not doing that.
Yeah, but when you first visit a tobacco plantation, and you see what that's like, and you visit the tobacco processing centers, and by processing in the world of premium cigars, processing is a simple thing. It involves water, heat, and that's it. I mean, but it's an entire, let's say, hanger of tobacco in what are called pilones. They're stacked up one on top of the other. And the weight of that tobacco and the water that they put on it, that weight produces heat because the tobacco starts to have a chemical reaction
Naturally.
with the water. Naturally, there's nothing added to it. That's literally tobacco leaf has been harvested, has been cured in a tobacco barn, and has been pulled down from the tobacco barn and taken to what is called un pilon. And so they pile up the tobacco. Literally the weight of the tobacco and the water that they spray on it, there's nothing in the water. It's the cleaner the water, the better, by the way. So don't ever think that there's anything in that water.
Yeah.
Because the cleaner it is, the better, because if not, the tobacco gets stained. Like
From a presentation standpoint?
Yeah. So if there is impurities in the water, or whatever impurities are in that water can stain the tobacco, and then that doesn't look as pretty. So they don't want anything in the water. And so they literally spray it with water. And that weight, you'd be amazed at the level of temperature in the middle of that pilon. It's crazy. And so that chemical reaction that the tobacco goes through, is all you need, right? That's called fermentation.
It's incredible.
And so then that's why I say tobacco processing center. And that sounds like, oh my God, some
It
crazy
does.
thing is
Super
happening.
high tech, very high tech.
Nothing high tech about it. It's literally a bunch of old dudes constantly checking the temperature. And when the temperature gets to a certain level, they'll take apart that pilon and they'll restack it in another pallet next to it to kind of cool it down, right? And to move it around so that not all the tobacco gets that same amount of heat. So anyway, when you go through that process and then you go to a factory and you see what that's like and you go to one factory and then you go to another and you learn how differently this thing can be done, how many different ways there are to skin that cat, that's when you start to understand, holy crap, I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything. And after 15 years of producing Cigar Snob, I can tell you I still don't know anything. Like those guys, it's amazing. They can tell you, they can smoke a cigar and they can tell you exactly from what country each tobacco is from. They'll tell you what varietal it is. Just smoking the cigar.
That palate's that refined.
It's so refined. It's insane. I have the utmost respect for those guys. Not only that, but cigars they're blended to be consistent, right? Cigars are not like wine. So in wine, you celebrate the difference from vintage to vintage, right?
Yeah.
You get the 2014 whatever Bordeaux, and you're like, oh, that's the badass one, right? In cigars, that's not the case. This cigar is supposed to taste the same this year as it did last year, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. And how do you achieve that with a natural product? That's the mystery of the whole thing. That's why when I say those smokers don't know what they're talking about, the majority of cigar smokers don't know. They don't know what they don't know, right? They think I know this brand and I know that brand. You don't know what you don't know. This cigar is not the same as it was last year. The contents of it are different.
It's impossible.
And
right?
yet it tastes the same. That is magic. It's magic. And only the master blender of the factory can manage that. It's wild, man.
What's crazy? What made you kind of fall in love with cigars?
So my grandfather on my mom's side, he smoked cigars my whole life. So when I was a little kid, he was always had a cigar in his mouth, always. And when I would spend summers with them, he would have me go on my bike to go buy the cigars in La Cafeteria. It was called Santa Barbara Cafeteria in Davie. And so I would ride my bike, and then they'd give me his 2 cigars, and then I'd go back. And so just the smell of the cigars, I loved the smell because it meant I was going to be with him. So for me, that's huge, right? Just from when I first started smoking, it was like my connection to him because he had already passed. So that was my initial connection to it. And then my sister starts dating this guy who's best friends with Jose Oliva of Oliva Cigars, who is the guy who I said earlier named the magazine. And so his dad was a legend. He passed away as well. He was a legend in the cigar business, and he finally comes out with his own brand in the early 90s or mid 90s. And so I had never smoked. I thought of myself as an athlete. I know that's funny. I know that.
No, I get laughed at too. Don't worry.
Yeah. I wanted to play sports all my life. That's all I cared about, right? So I never smoked. I didn't drink. None of that. And then Jose tells me, look, my dad's line of cigars is finally here. We have to smoke them. We have to celebrate.
Right.
I was like, all right, well, tell me what to do. I have no clue. I mean, I've been watching my grandfather do it my whole life.
It looks easy too.
Yeah, but I don't know anything, right? So he gives me a little quick crash course on what to do. And that day, I drove home in second gear the whole way. And I was not a second gear guy when driving. I was, how quickly can I get from point A to point B? And that day I was like, wow, this is like, I like this. I like this feeling. I think I need this in my life. By the way, I was already 20 some odd years old. I was
Disclaimer.
a young man.
This wasn't of age.
Like,
yeah.
So that's where I thought, I like this. And then the next day I called Jose. I said, hey, you think I could buy a few more of those boxes from your dad's cigars? And that started my love affair with cigars, and it hasn't stopped. And every time I go to a factory, I fall in love again.
No, it's interesting. I wanted to ask you, that first cigar, I'm assuming it was a light cigar.
Yeah, it was. It was mild. It was actually a similar Vitoles, maybe a little bit less, a thinner ring gauge, but similar to this, right? A mild, a mild Nicaraguan cigar,
which is, I'm assuming that would be kind of the first step for someone to either smoke their first cigar, try to get into cigars. You should start on the lighter blend, correct?
without a doubt.
Like that has to be 101.
Don't ever jump into the deep
start
end.
light. Don't do that. If not, I mean, we've had plenty of experiences. I think we've stories in this room, right? Going too heavy and not feeling to all that kick. Not the best for you.
It's not. It feels terrible, and there's no need for it. Yeah, I know it's a macho thing, and you're like, yeah, I smoke strong. Don't do it, man. I'm telling you, I'm with these old tobacco guys. These guys that smoke their entire lives, whose life depends on tobacco, and they're not smoking the super, super strong stuff. They're not. They're not, because the original idea of cigars from the very beginning is not to like knock your face off. That's not the idea of cigars. So although in today's cigar market there are a lot of strong cigars, and there are a lot of people who seek out the stronger cigars and they want stronger and stronger and stronger. That doesn't quite jive with the original idea of cigars.
Which was what? Just to enjoy time, right? It was
correct.
A luxury.
It's a well, from the beginning it's not a luxury product, right? At the very beginning, at least modern cigars in Cuba, that's just an everyday item. It's just a more pleasant smoking experience than a cigarette, right? The tobacco is more pure, so it's never. What I mean by more pure is it doesn't have any chemicals, as I mentioned earlier. It's tobacco and water. Yeah. So, and then there's a little bit of sugar-based glue that they use here, but that's it. You're right.
Which is, I mean, again, I had no idea. Like, just it was that pure. I mean, I assume there was at least one or two different hidden processes to do it, but
nope. And then there's if you want to talk about other processes, there's some things that some people will do, like they'll spray the walls of where the fermentation is happening with like red wine or something, and they think that they're doing something magical.
Take that little extra.
But no. And by the way, we're talking about premium, long filler, handmade cigars, not any other type of cigar, not a machine made, not a flavored cigar, and those have obviously. To get flavorings, you have to add stuff. But what I'm referring to is premium long filler cigar. So what long filler in that conversation means, in case anybody's wondering, is that the tobacco, if we were to cut open the cigar right now, what you would find is entire leaves. At the most, you'd find like a half a leaf, right? Because they put that leaf in there for a particular characteristic that it has. But for the most part, these are all long leaves. They're not chopped up tobacco like you would find in a cigarette or you'd find in a machine-made cigar.
Okay.
In a machine-made cigar, they take all of the tobacco that goes into that blend and they put it in this hopper, and it just mixes it all up. And then the machines turn that into little cigars. But in this case, it's 100% long filler cigar, handmade, right? So literally a person is making that. At the most, in terms of machine involvement in premium cigars, is this machine. It's called the Winterman's machine, which helps them bunch the cigar faster. I don't want to bore people to death.
Well, I mean, I think 101, like
I
cigars.
There was like 4 people who were like, I'm out.
They're taking notes. No, they got it. The other thing, just going into it, like from a cigar, getting into cigars, a cigar newbie, right? There's just so many different types of cigars. Like even in your magazine.
Yeah.
Right, Cigar Snob. Like you're just going through it. I mean, your ADD kicks in. It's great, but it's almost information, overload, right?
It is.
Is how do you kind of like?
I think that's fair. The easiest thing to start is like by country, is to go, okay, let me start with just country.
Okay.
That's an easy way to go, because each country has its flavor profile that you may like or you may not like, right? For example, Dominican cigars can have sort of an herbal characteristic that some people absolutely love and some people don't. Nicaraguan cigars have like maybe a little bit of excessive pepper for some people. Other people are like, this is my jam.
Right.
And let's say Honduran cigar, I'm really generalizing here, right? Because not every tobacco that comes out of that country is like that.
No, this is super.
But it's just kind of like a rule of thumb. So country, and then the next thing to look at would be the wrapper, right? The wrapper color helps you determine, is this the kind of cigar that's too strong for me or too mild for me?
In what sense? By color?
Yeah. So, and it's not that the wrapper itself determines the strength. but they typically, I mean, and we're talking 9.5 times out of 10, will not put a mild wrapper like this one on a strong filler blend, right? Because it would just overpower the wrapper. The wrapper is the most expensive part of the cigar. I mean, it is.
Well, I've had some, and I want to ask you this because I have a serious debate with my business partner Fernando. It's funny because one of his first jobs out of college was at a cigar shop, and we've had this ongoing battle. And literally, smoking cigars, being opportunistic, playing golf, he says that you can never have the label on the cigar. This is an ongoing discussion, and to know can you throw the hammer down and tell me if he's right or wrong? Because he'll take it off and I'll leave it on just because
Of
I
course.
don't know, and just leave it on, right? That's what I do.
Why not?
But he thinks that I'm disrespecting the process.
No, you are definitely not disrespecting the process. I think that in terms of our way of looking at the world in cigars, and this comes from a very grounded view from the tobacco growers and the cigar makers themselves. After you buy the cigar, you could do with it whatever you want. If you want to take the label off and put it on your forehead, have at it, chief.
You own it. You bought it, run with
You
it.
could do whatever you want with it. And those guys, I would say that to a man will tell you that. Once you buy it, buddy, smoke it however you want. Who cares?
I can hold it however I want.
Yeah, I'll tell you what is the best way to do this based on history. But you can do whatever you want.
It's
so
I mean,
so that's one. But the other is that the label was originally said to be developed as a way to prevent people from getting the oil. Tobacco has oil, right? It's naturally occurring oil. Again, not oil that has been added. It's an oily plant, and so they would use the label to prevent the oil from getting on their gloves, the white gloves. That's what they say is the reason for the label.
That's a cigar snob in me.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's another reason why I keep the label on. See,
Yeah.
I was right.
But the other part, of course, I mean, if you're smoking a cigar like you're smoking this Don Carlos, man, that's part of what starts the conversation. When you get into the cigar lounge,
Right.
or the golf course or whatever, you're like, oh, I see you're smoking a Don Carlos. I love that cigar, or XYZ, right? Or this cigar, like the Joya de Nicaragua Número Uno. You're smoking that, and you're like, hey, did you know that? Like, that was the presidential cigar. Like, when the embargo on Cuba happened, that cigar, that Joya de Nicaragua, with the blue label, that was the cigar that U.S. presidents would give to dignitaries when they would visit the White House. That was their gift cigar.
Nice.
Because they couldn't get Cubans anymore.
Right.
And that became the cigar. So now you got a story that you can share with this
That's
guy
pretty
who you
cool.
just met in a cigar lounge.
So that was Plan B after the embargo.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, once the embargo,
They had to pivot, right?
they had to find because that's a customary thing that any dignitary that would come from another country, you would give them a cigar or a box of cigars. I don't remember. And so they were like, the White House sommelier had to go find what cigar do we use. And so he went around tasting and he fell in love with that. And this was during, I think, it was discovered during the Nixon administration that it was a Joya de Nicaragua.
Nice.
Yeah, Anastasio Somoza, who was the president of Nicaragua, goes to have a meeting with Nixon. And when Nixon pulls out the cigar, he's like, wait a second, that's
us.
That's Joya de Nicaragua.
Yeah.
That comes from my country. So being a dictator that he was, he ended up eventually owning Joya de Nicaragua.
Which is, I'm sure he did. Unfortunate.
Yeah, now it's owned by a family, a wonderful family, the Martinez family.
Let me ask you, just
Not
cigars.
related.
I mean, this is a newbie question as well. The lighter the wrapper, the lighter the cigar, correct?
That's what I was saying earlier, is that the color of the wrapper will help you determine, generally speaking, the strength. Although you can have a Connecticut shade wrapped cigar like that one and have it be strong, it's not common because they don't go well together. That filler blend with too strong tobacco would overpower the wrapper, and the wrapper, like I said earlier, is the most expensive part of the cigar. So why would you overpower it? Right? So it's kind of like a self-policing thing.
Counterproductive.
Yeah, so it polices itself. If the thing has a mild wrapper like this, it's going to be mild for the most part. You can get fooled, but most likely you're not.
How do you identify value as far as a cigar?
So that's a tricky question, right? So in our world, we have to smoke it, right? We smoke blind when we're doing tastings for the ratings. So we have no idea what the cigar looks like from a marketing standpoint.
Interesting.
So that's key, number one. So once you remove the label, because there's a cost on the label on the box, once you remove the label, now what's the smoking experience? So is the tobacco, are they using aged tobacco? Like, is the tobacco scratching my throat? Is it pungent and stinging my eyes? That would be a sign of not quite finished fermentation, right? When the tobacco, when you're smoking it and your eyes are stinging, you just lit it. Not after being in a room full of cigar smokers.
Yeah.
That's different. That's a natural thing in your eyes, right? It's too much smoke. But when you just you light the cigar and your nose lights up on fire, your throat starts to sting and your eyes are burning, that means that the fermentation wasn't quite finished. And that to us decreases the value of the cigar, naturally, right? Because to get to that step of having a cigar that is smooth, flavorful, has aroma, has the right amount of power that you want, and doesn't impact you negatively, like your throat getting scratchy and whatnot, to get to that point, the tobacco has to be aged. There's no way around it.
So there's no shortcuts.
There's no shortcut. It has to be fermented to the point that it has to get to, and not beyond it, because if it goes beyond it, it stops tasting like anything. And now you're just smoking cardboard. So that's one, right? So does it have those flavors and aromas and things that I want, or that someone else would want? By the way, in our world, when we're rating, we're not tasting and rating for our personal taste.
You do. That's interesting. You gotta flip it and kind of do it for the masses.
Correct.
And a different level of a cigar smoker as well.
Correct. So when we're tasting, we're pointing out the different flavors and aroma, whether we like them or not. And of course, there are flavors that are negative, like ammonia, right? And again, that would be.
Has anyone ever liked that?
Of course. No, not liked it. No, but that happens in cigars. Again, that is a naturally occurring chemical in tobacco.
Yeah.
And if you don't ferment it all the way, there's still ammonia there.
Right.
You don't want that. When you get that sweet, that weird sweetness that ammonia has, and that burning sensation, we prefer not to smoke those.
Right.
We really don't. When we're tasting, because we have to taste, we finish the cigar because we have to. But that cigar, when you walk into our office, you see boxes of cigars that no one in the office smokes. No one smokes them because nobody wants to smoke that.
Right.
Why? When I can smoke something that has been aged properly and well made. So back to your earlier question, in terms of value, the tobacco itself is a big part of it, right? So, like I said earlier, that wrapper tobacco is extremely expensive. So when you see a wrapper that is, that pretty, that clean, and then has the aroma and the flavors that you like, that has value, and that doesn't come cheap, right?
And the size as well? Does the size play a factor in it as well? Or no?
Well, naturally it does.
Because how long you can smoke the cigar, it's a time factor too, right?
That value to the consumer, no doubt about it, right? That's why we've seen in recent years the sort of growth of the 6x60, because for $1 more, I can get 45 minutes more smoke time. However, smokers that really want to taste the cigars, they don't smoke the 6x60s because there's too much filler. So the ratio of filler to wrapper is now skewed out of proportion. And so now I can't even taste the most expensive tobacco in the whole thing.
Right.
Right. So you'll find that smokers that really care and want to know, that are a little more snobby, they'll typically smoke Coronas. Coronas are like 6.5 by 46 as the size.
That's the most common type of cigar, right?
No, that's
size-wise?
funny. No, today that's not the most common. Today that one's a little bit harder to come by.
Really?
Yeah. Now back in the day it was. In fact, the Corona size was kind of the size that defined all the other sizes. You compared everything to Corona. It's the funniest thing. And today you say Corona, people are like, nah, it's too small. I don't smoke that.
That's the newbie in me. That's what I remember. Getting into when I smoke cigars.
Correct, because the name Corona in Cuban families, like you have people still to this day. I have an uncle that he refers to all cigars like Coronitas. He's like, "Tiene alguna Coronita ahí?" Like that, because that was the size that defined all other sizes.
Right.
It's crazy. So that's why you have the Corona, and then you'd have a double Corona, right? and then a short Corona, so today the most popular size is 6x50, without doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's longer than a Robusto. Robusto's 5x50, so you get a little bit more smoking time,
But not the.
and then not the super thick, right? So 50 ring gauge as opposed to 60, and so it's easy to determine. 60 is almost an inch thick, right? 68 is a
which
full
can take a
inch.
lot of work as well. I mean, that's
It does, but like I said, the biggest thing is that the ratio of filler to wrapper is not conducive to you tasting that wrapper.
Well, let me see, but go back to the value. Like, how much you think it would cost? What's a just? I look at it like a bottle of wine, right? I'm trying to look for a value in the 20s. Can I find a good one? I'm always searching for that.
Yep.
What would someone look at as far as a cigar? Is it in the teens, like the 10 to 15, 20? Like, what would be the?
So a $20 bottle or $25 bottle,
That's what I hunt for. That's my.
yeah, would be the equivalent of like a $12 cigar.
Okay.
Maybe even lower, maybe 10.
Okay.
But there's excellent cigars in that 5, 6, 7, 8 range. No question about it. Also, the size determines the price too, right? So if you have a 5x50, that's priced $7. The Toro version of it will be probably $1 more, right?
But,
So
I wanted to ask you too, because something about in your business. Obviously, you're Cigar Snob, right? You do the print, but you also do a lot of your branding, your marketing on social media as well. You have the podcast, Instagram, Facebook, right? How when that started evolving, how much do you believe in it? Because talking just overall from a branding standpoint, and I think everybody should be brand themselves, take advantage of these type of forums. How much have you seen it kind of evolve in your business aside from the print, but getting onto on the social? Like, when did that kind of click?
So it has become, especially in the last couple years, it has become a particularly impactful medium. Now, it impacts you in terms of gaining exposure to a brand. So people will have seen the brand.
Right.
What it doesn't do, what people still in social media, they don't get, that doesn't make them go buy it. And because Instagram is owned by Facebook, they don't allow you to sell cigars.
No, that's a whole pay to play, right?
Well, no,
Form.
not just pay to play.
Oh, cigars in general.
Not allowed. Tobacco is not allowed there.
The ATF, right? Or
No. It's not ATF. It's Facebook's policy.
okay.
Just like Apple's policy when it comes to our app. Right? Like we used to distribute the magazine in print and through Apple Newsstand, and Apple shut us down.
Any specific reason? Is that kind of it's just a hard line stance?
Anti-tobacco policy.
Interesting.
So we can't even upload the new issues to Apple Newsstand. So now we use a different service called Issue.
Okay.
It doesn't have the install base of Apple though, right? You can't just, not everybody has it on their phone right away. So that hurt us, but it's Apple deciding that they don't want to promote tobacco, even though you could just age restrict it. But that's a topic for another day. That one's not as fun as everything else we've been talking about.
No, that's a little bit of a downer. I had no idea.
Yeah,
Honestly, I had no idea they did that.
And the same thing. So Instagram, you can't sell cigars, which is fine too. But so what you get on social media is you get exposure for little to no cost, and so that has been very beneficial for some companies that have been proactive, and also some influencers. We see them every day. There's new.
So many companies are investing in influencers as far as a distribution channel. I mean, it does work. I just think that social media, it should be viewed as a currency. Attention should be a currency.
Yep.
Like we're doing it here in different ways, right? But like looking at your podcast as well, when you kind of do a deep dive, you're also bringing a lot of information too. Like you're being informative, right? You're giving.
That's the idea.
It's like you're giving it away for free, right? You're using your knowledge, giving it away, and then drawing it, and it comes back in a different kind of.
Correct, and that is the idea of the podcast. Is we produce Cigar Snob 6 times a year, so that's only 6 times I get to touch the customer, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but so the podcast was a way for us to maintain contact with our customers and continue to give them the content they enjoy from the magazine.
Right.
in an audio format, and that was all it was, right? Let's increase the number of times we can talk to our customer and stay in touch with them, and have them consume more of our content and share more of our knowledge in a different way that's not restricted by the amount of space that you can print on.
And I love the fact that you're, even though it's not just an audio set, but you do it the video as well, which I think is so underrated. Like video is one of those things where just doing this alone, like you're able to connect with people in a different way.
For sure.
I'm trying to get, even here in our office, I'm trying to get people to get a little more uncomfortable. I'm like, this is the way. This is the way to kind of get that little connection, and your personality comes out into it. That's why I thought maybe you had Cigar Snob after, just because it kind of plays into how you come across.
So that's funny, right? So we started the magazine 16 years ago, but we launched the first one 15 years ago. It took us almost a whole year to get the first issue out. And then when we started doing stuff on YouTube and started doing the podcast, that's really when our own unique personalities came out. Before that, the only thing you got personality-wise was my letter from the publisher.
Sure.
And that was the only place that you saw, oh, these are actual people, because I always made it a point. I always hated when I saw it in a magazine. I always saw the publisher or the editor in every event shot, and that always drives me crazy. Right. So whenever I'm at we go to a lot of events. Whenever I'm at an event and people want to take a picture with me, I say, well, first take one of you two guys alone, and then I'll jump in so we can have the picture. But first do one that we can print, because I don't want to be in every picture. Right. I hate that.
Right.
So anyway, because of that mentality, you never saw too much of our personalities in it. And so once we started doing those mail time videos and the podcast, that's when people really started to connect, which is, so that's a testament, which was part of my answer earlier that we didn't get to social media and the impact that it has. It allows consumers to have a connection with you that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
100%.
We would have never done that. Right?
100%.
We would have never connected with them that way. And so now they know us. Sometimes I get to an event and these guys are talking to me like if they know me.
Or they'll bring up something maybe they saw on YouTube, right? And like bring up like either a review or said I smoked that because of this or X, Y, and Z. That's such it's invaluable. Which I'm just, again, preaching to the choir. Obviously, you're doing a great job, but like telling people this is something that you have to do. I think no longer as a business, it is just
nope, I agree.
a side, it's a side hustle. But this is part of everyday life, and the people that are embracing it are evolving faster.
Yep.
So it's kudos to you for what you're doing, man. You actually talking about it, I saw a couple of things. My wife, I'm gonna push back on her about the cigar stuff.
Okay.
I joke around like if you want to get people to talk about insurance and then smoke a cigar, and that's how I give some alone time in the house.
Listen, we can put some air purifiers in here.
That'll be the next one.
We can just do gas and cigars.
There you go. I
don't see why not. Why can't it be rebranded?
It's gas with no coffee, but just cigars. Yeah. It'll be like the thing we can roll around, man. Absolutely.
I dig it.
I appreciate you doing this. Just coming on and doing this. And
no, man, my pleasure. Thank you.
It's cool to talk about fellow business owners and also how you're using social media. When we connected, not only your name I thought was brilliant, but how you're marketing your business and how you're kind of using these platforms.
Thank you.
It always pumps me up to kind of elevate my game as well. So kudos to you, man, and continued success.
Thank you, man, and likewise. And this, what you've done in insurance to involve this much social media and content creation, that's an admirable thing too. You don't see that in an insurance office.
No, you don't. Well, you know what?
Some people would say that's crazy.
I'm either crazy or
but it's working.
Crazy or smart. I can figure it out. But I'm enjoying it.
It's working.
And that's the most important part.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you know what gives me confidence too? The insurance bar is very low, so that gives me confidence to do whatever the hell I want. But thanks, Erik. I appreciate you, man.
No, man. Thank you
very much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Later.